listening to Make It, a podcast by Bonsai Creative that helps creatives in film get where they're going faster by sharing the advice, knowledge, and insights of professional creatives across the film industry. I'm your host, Chris Barkley.
Hey, this is Travis Nicholson. I'm a filmmaker and actor, writer, musician, amateur cartoonist. You might know me from Still the King or various ridiculous national commercial campaigns, if you remember any of those. And I am currently working in Nashville on an independent film project called East Side Story and Stan and Dan Save the Planet, and in the midst of making a podcast called Set It Straight with Midland.
Travis Nicholson, welcome to the Make It podcast.
Thanks, Chris. It's great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Anytime. It may not occur to the audience that the people we interview are people that we've never met before in our lives. And the reality is that's oftentimes the case, that the relationship, the friendship is starting at the point in which we are interviewing our guests. And the future of that relationship directly rides on whether or not that podcast interview went well or not. In this case, I'm happy to say that you are someone I've known for a while, whose family I've known for a while, and I'm excited just to know even more. And it might make for a more laid back and funny interview where we do have a lot more inside baseball between us than normal interviews. So if that happens, I will do my best, and fair warning to the audience, I will do my best to uncover that inside baseball, explain some of those things if that does happen. And so I'd love to start with a little bit of that right now.
Well, just to be clear, though, our friendship is still on the line if this goes poorly. So listeners, beware. This man is on trial.
Noted. And I'm going to be on my absolute A game. I've had so much caffeine. There's no way for me to fail here. I'd love to start here, Travis. Who is L. Rick Hahn?
Oh, wow. There's a man named Rick Hahn, and he hails from Denver, and he has a penchant for songs involving Irish lore, in particular leprechauns. And, I've known him for years. He's a dear friend. And when he comes to town, I'm always gone. Whenever he's in town, I always miss his show. So I feel bad. I've known him for a long time, but a lot of my friends play in his band. And he made a web series here. There's a music video. If anyone wants to see that, highly recommend going to YouTube and putting in El Rick Hahn. That's E-L-R-I-C-H. Wait, no, I'm wrong. It's E-L-R-I-C-K-H-A-U-N. Help from Above. It's a music video starring Rick and Chris Crofton. And it looks like it was made by 8th graders who got into some weed gummies. And we're still really proud of that video. And so it's a rock band, sort of like Tenacious D or Flight of the Conchords. And we play once a year on St. Patrick's Day. And we've been doing it for like 20 years. And the guys in the band are amazing. It's an incredible band with Joshua Headley, who's an amazing recording artist on New West Records and on Third Man. Corey Yance, who's one of the main members of Old Crow Medicine Show, Skylar Wilson, who's an amazing producer, and then just a rotating cast of just amazing musicians that want to come out and have a good time. And it's just a really fun creative fellowship that we've gotten to have for, so much. It's like the music is, there's no pressure because we just enjoy making it, and no one's going to be like, oh man, I don't know about that Leprechaun band. There's no judgment. It's just fun and to make people laugh. And man, we've had a blast. And interestingly, also, we made a web series about Rick first arriving in Nashville years ago. 15 years ago. And a bunch of people helped. Wes helped me with it. Chris Crofton also acted in that. We had a live rooster on a leash. we shot around Nashville for like a week, and everyone worked for free, and it was just a blast. And then in the editing process, we lost the hard drive. It was probably me, but somehow the hard drive was misplaced, and we lost the footage for 15 years. And we just found it.
Wow.
Wes was doing inventory on his hard drives and just doing some, house cleaning. And he found this hard drive that said El Rakan on it. It was like finding a pot of gold, man.
Oh my goodness. Yeah.
And so we've been re-editing it. And it's so fun to watch. Nashville looks so different. We shot downtown, all the stuff in there, and everyone's younger, it's just funny. And, we've thought about doing a reshoot like present day to show, sort of cap off the ending where is Rick now, because he's 15 years older and Chris Crofton is 15 years older. So we're kind of in the process of opening up that can of worms and we're not sure what we're going to call it. Either Rick comes to Nashville or the super secret special personal pot of gold. Which is a line in a song, which is just a window into how ridiculous that stuff is.
The lyrics get progressively more contradictory and ridiculous, which is also why they're so brilliant in the song. How did you come up with the characterization of Rick? Like how this almost feels like a melding of like Bob Ross and Smithers, or not Smithers, but Simpson's neighbor.
Sure.
I'm forgetting
what's his name?
Yeah,
Ned
Flanders. Yeah,
Flanders. Yeah,
and a few other, and maybe the guy who does the progressive commercials where he's trying to prevent you from being like your parents, like that guy himself, all mixed into a person who can play guitar and sing. So how did you come up with this persona and this caricature for Rick Hahn?
Well, we were talking about, a lot of my friends worked at the Bluebird Cafe growing up. And also a lot of my friends' parents are songwriters. My dad's a songwriter, Gary Nicholson, a fantastic songwriter and recording artist and musician. And through that, seeing all these writers' nights, at the Bluebird, there'd be people who would come in and you'd see incredible, amazing singer-songwriters that could just hold your attention with just a guitar and amazing stuff. And then, then you'd see people that came in and were just from anywhere in the Midwest or just, and this was their dream to play a song. And it was just wacky stuff. People that didn't grow up in the industry would just, you'd be listening to a song and then something would come out of left field and you go, whoa, I wasn't expecting that, and God bless them. They just didn't really know how to write songs yet. And they're just trying it out. And, it's kind of like going to an open mic comedy night or something. You're like, that joke didn't land because it didn't make any sense, but keep trying.
I think a lot of songwriters think the key to my success is going to be that I do something incredibly different. But I think you do want to surprise people, but within the confines of, let's say, the musical Overton window. Sure.
Like, know the rules so you can break them effectively. Exactly. Kind of thing.
Exactly.
And so I thought it'd be funny if we staged this, like if a guy comes in And he just seems like one of those kind of aw shucks Midwestern kind of dudes. Just, well, it sure is great to see everybody. And I really appreciate you bending your ear for a minute and hearing one of my tunes, you know, one of those kind of real kind of earnest deliveries. And then he goes into a song, and it seems like the song's about something normal. And then leprechauns happen in the song.
Right.
And that, you know, so everyone would just kind of be like, whoa, okay. Did he just start singing about leprechauns? Was that introduced? And, you know, we kind of imagine this writer's night where, you know, it's a writers in the round thing. So he finishes his song. The next songwriter has his song, and then get back around to Rick again. And he's playing a song. And this one seems to be about something. Okay, well, this is a normal song. And then, nope, leprechauns again. And the song, they arrived, you know, second chorus. There it is. And we thought, what a funny prank that would be to just mess with people. And so that's where it came from. And we just thought it was funny. And me and my friend Jesse Parker wrote the first couple things, Help from Above. And we were just cracking each other up, man. We were just laughing so hard about just this sort of overly polite kind of earnest delivery, but with the most ridiculous lyrics. And the idea that a person would have some neurosis where every song ends up somehow being about leprechauns, you know? And we stretch those parameters, and, you know, we get into sort of more like sort of, you know, medieval kind of dorkiness, you know, kind of Renaissance fair kind of sounding stuff here and there, where it's like saving a princess from a dragon's cave and all this stuff. But that's all told. The storyteller who's relaying the story is a leprechaun. You know, as I peered into my pot of gold, I saw an ancient tale unfold, frozen in time like a window in my mind. So it's the leprechaun telling the story. So we kind of we have certain caveats we allow, but man, it's just plain fun. I love it. I love working with these people, and there's no pressure to be cool or interesting beyond just what's making us laugh and having fun. And the music's really good because the people that make it with me are all amazing, accomplished musicians, and they really put their heart into it, and it's a blast.
Yeah, I'm not sure I've heard a much cleaner voice than Joshua Headley. When he sings, it's so pure. It's like must have drank 10 cups of throat coat before his studio session. It's super duper clear. You mentioned being the son of Gary Nicholson, the Grammy Award winning songwriter and singer. And it's kind of synonymous with you. I know that probably carries its own weight, and we can talk about that at some time, but at some time in this conversation. The other side of that, though, is that you grew up with this elite group of country musicians in the sort of elite circles of songwriting in Nashville in the 80s and 90s. Willie Nelson, Waylon Jennings, Garth Brooks, George Strait, B.B. King, Ringo Starr, etc. Can you tell us what a common thread is that you may have noticed between all those guys that, I don't know, maybe could be advice to this audience perhaps, but maybe not if you don't want to go that route, but a common thread in all of them that you may have noticed even at that young age that stood out and said, oh, that's why they're successful?
Well, among those people you mentioned, I would say they're all so innately who they are. I mean, you know, all those people, they sang in their own style. They wrote in their own style. They really didn't compromise their vision in their careers, and consistently. Mm-hmm. And there's no stronger brand than that in my mind, than being truly who you are as a person, and really not bending to some kind of strategy or industry outcome, or, you know, whatever it may be. You're just doing what you do and doing it the best you know how. I mean, you know, it's pretty hard to mistake a B.B. King guitar solo, and also pretty hard to mistake a Willie Nelson guitar solo. And they're about as opposite as they can be.
Right.
You know, and then my dad getting to work with all those people was, I'd say the same for him. You know, there's a really cool thing that he does in his songwriting that I've always admired so much is that there's always a hidden message in the turn of a phrase. He's a really spiritual guy. He's meditates. He's, there has a much deeper inner life than a lot of people realize. And he sneaks that into his songs. There's always an extra little layer kind of vibrating there. And that's where I think he attracts these people that, have such pure voices artistically. I think he really, they gravitate towards that. They feel that from him, and they want there to be a deeper layer and not just some kind of surface lyrical thing, And I really think there's it's like a vibratory thing, truth attracts truth, kind of thing. And he's had the most incredible experiences, not just by being so prolific. I think he's one of the most recorded songwriters because he's just, he has that blue collar energy to his songwriting, but
right.
Add to that a deeper spiritual kind of approach, and I think that's a really amazing combination. And so I think those people all had a very deep inner life, or at least were uncompromising as who they were as artists,
Yeah, I've seen your dad in a large handful of writers in the round.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, wow.
Yeah, mostly from the blues cruise he would attend with Dilbert McClinton every year.
Yeah.
And I would be on that boat and get to see him basically play every single night. And he's at home.
Time.
Yeah, he's at home, and it's a home away from home when he's in that circle. It looks like he's the most comfortable person there, even if maybe that isn't the case. But I think that speaks very much to what you were just saying there. Is there a favorite childhood story that you could share with us growing up?
I did so many crazy things, growing up in neighborhoods in Nashville. And, we used to jump the train. We almost drowned in a cave one time. We got into some shenanigans growing up in a very idyllic way. I'm so grateful for growing up at the time I grew up and in the neighborhood I grew up in, and on a dead end street, and we all could run wild in the neighborhood, and our moms would call us in for dinner. And it's a very Norman Rockwell-esque kind of thing. And I'm so grateful for that. And a lot of those friends I had as children, I still have great friendships with. They're basically family, and they're all, a lot of them were songwriters' kids. And my mom is also this, she's an author. She's a childcare advocate. She has an organization called Attachment Parenting International.
Yep.
And she's written books and curriculums and has support groups all around the world. And she's just a incredible woman. And so it was her circle of moms and families that she was in support groups with. And then her best friend, Lisa Parker, who co-founded Attachment Parenting International, API.org, I believe, API.com, API. Yeah. And her son, Jesse, and I grew up together, and we're still great friends. And then, my dad's songwriter buddies, Dustin Welch, Skylar Wilson, Corey Yance, all these people that I've known since I was a kid are all still in my life and that I played with and hung out with when I was a kid. So that's really cool. I feel really grateful for that and lucky. And man, it's a particular story. I don't know. Let me think for a second.
We can come back to it if you want, but were there any stories that jump out to you that pertain to maybe your interest in film? Because I think I'm sure there was a lot of thought to, and maybe even perhaps pressure to play guitar and be a songwriter and follow in the business of what your father was doing, or even perhaps your mom, Barbara, like maybe be an author, but at some point film just jumped out to you. Is there a story that connects you to that?
Totally. Yeah. Yeah. There, I think really in some ways, my brothers and I talk about this sometimes because my dad knew how hard it was to make it in this business and how hard, being a touring musician is, and just how challenging it is and how much effort it takes to make it happen. And I mean, that's a whole other can of worms now because publishing just doesn't pay, songwriting doesn't pay like it used to because of streaming. It's just not really a great vehicle to make money. It's hard to be a working songwriter, but they're not handing out publishing deals to people where you get an advance and, yeah, so he was pretty he was supportive of all of us. I have 3 brothers, and we all kind of have followed creative paths in various ways. And so he's always supportive, but he's never like, you better practice that guitar and we're going to do this. It was really like he would play for us, show us stuff, all my early guitar, knowledge came from my dad. And then I took guitar lessons too, here and there. But he's just a maniac on the guitar. He's so good that it's just like, okay, like you watch him play and you're like, this is a foreign language still at 42 years old. I mean, he has an ability that I don't think I'll ever achieve on guitar. And I'm okay with that. I'm just like, but there was a time period where I was a kid. I was like in 3rd grade, and I was always into art. I was always into painting and drawing and that kind of medium. I was really, really interested in that, and that's kind of what I thought I would be doing. But even as a little kid, I had an interest in filmmaking and just loved movies and wanted to know what that was about. But we didn't have access to a camera. Not a lot of people had home video cameras as much. But we had a tape recorder. And so me and my buddy, Andrew Rosario, were together a lot after school. And we just had to make our own fun. We kind of got pulled away from the TV as much as they could. You can only watch The Rocketeer so many times. And we'd made like marble mazes and stuff. But one thing we started doing was recording on this tape recorder and making we kind of realized there's like 3 elements to anything you want to do, like, radio play, do a sketch or a skit or whatever. And so it's like, you have people talking, you got dialogue, you got music, and you have sound effects. And with those 3 things, you could do some pretty funny stuff. So, we would get like 100 greatest, the 100 greatest orchestral performances CD, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
It'd be like just classical music. And then a sound effects CD. And we'd have 2 tape recorders, or we'd have a tape recorder going, and then we'd have 2 CD players, and we would cue sound effects and record audio, and we'd make fake commercials and stuff, like, are you having trouble sleeping? And there'd be, classical music, and then there'd be, lewd sound effects, whatever. And we just made stuff all the time. And then and we'd play them for our friends. We had, full on little radio plays, different characters that would return. You could do a new episode about these characters. And we just really enjoyed it just for our own amusement. And then Andrew's grandmother lent us her VHS camera. And man, that just changed everything. We had that sort of basis already, just doing audio stuff. And then we had that camera. We're like, holy crap. I mean, it was just so cool. We were just like, man.
Right.
And, we just tried everything we could possibly think of. Forced perspective, turning the camera on its side, magic shows, stopping and moving objects and starting it again, tying the camera onto stuff, and just, anything we could think of that would be fun. And so that's kind of where we started, doing stuff. And then we just started getting better cameras. Whenever we get a hold of a better camera, my parents got me a great camera, finally got me like a, mini DV camcorder. Man, we just made stuff all the time. That's what we did for fun for a long time, before there was beer and parties, you know, and well after that too.
There was a moment where you had the band The Swindlers, but decided to leave to go to Watkins Film School. So there has been this sort of tug of war in your creative heart for at least up to that point. How hard was it to say goodbye to The Swindlers to go to film school?
Well, you know, we were playing and that band it was so cool because my friend Dustin Welch had a building back behind his mom's house that was like it had been a studio. This guy, Mike Henderson, lived there before. Amazing guitar player, singer. Mike Henderson had it. And so when they bought that house from Mike, they had this like studio. So that became his bedroom back there. And it was like just a totally private, separate hangout, you know? And so we just were out there playing music all the time and recording and making little movies and no bathroom, but you know, he had a fridge and, you know, it was great. A piano and like, so that's where the Swindlers formed. It was me, Corey Yance, Dustin Welch. And then quickly other people started joining. And the whole angle was the reason why we called ourselves the Swindlers was because we were taking all these old songs, like really old American, old timey songs. And a lot of them we'd never heard recorded before. We'd heard, you know, really weird old versions or, you know, Woody Guthrie stuff that had never been recorded. You know, song fragments that we'd kind of make our own. And, we'd work them up on traditional instruments, you know, like banjos and mandolins and guitars and upright bass. And we started busking, you know, we started performing on street corners around downtown and stuff. And going out to these kind of like little bluegrass, you know, guitar pulls and shindigs, like in kind of rural counties of Tennessee. And you just see amazing stuff. These people just as hobbyists were just crazy good flat pickers and banjo players and fiddlers. And, you know, I remember we walked into one of those things and there's this woman and she's breastfeeding her baby on stage while she's playing upright bass. And we're like, this is the real deal right here. That's where we just had a respect for that stuff. We just thought it was cool. We thought this is our little angle, you know, we're kind of just making something old new again, but in a respectful way. You know, we weren't adding you know, break beats to it or anything. You know, right. Then in that process, Justin Townes Earle joined the band, Steve Earle's son, and he had all these songs that just really melded well with that old material we were doing, and that just took everything to a new level. And we started just playing gigs with him. And that was just great. I mean, I think he was such a prolific, brilliant songwriter. Yeah. And a lot of his work, I think just kind of, you know, we loved it, but only really now do I see how profound a lot of it was because, you know, you just listen to it. There's just nothing wrong with it. It just sounds like any old song that we were already doing, you know. The placement was so clean and true to the genre. And he was just naturally that way. And his voice and guitar playing was so great and clean and honest, you know, and we actually unearthed a bunch of recordings Dustin had made with Justin Earle's on there. I mean, his songs, I think it's like 22 songs that they just recorded on a reel-to-reel tape machine that I dug out of my dad's basement that we had to kind of cobble back together. And then recorded all this stuff. And Chris Scruggs is on there, Fats Kaplan, like just kind of whoever we get to come over and play a part we needed. And it's just so good, man. It sounds so great. I was just sort of cheering them on. Nobody's asked me to do any guitar solos. Maybe an El Rakan, but you know, we had these, you know, there's just such a wealth of talent around us. So we pulled from that, sort of cherry picked who we could get to come in and play. And then, and they're actually going to hopefully release that.
I was going to say, what are they going to do with that? I mean, it's
yeah, I think it's like his best record, man. Honestly, I think
it would be huge.
It's so good. It's so cool. And, obviously I have a lot of nostalgia for it and a lot of sentimental value to that because of Justin passing away.
Right.
But on top of it, it's like, I think it's just awesome. It's like, because he was so young and no one was showing off. We were just doing the best we could,
Mm-hmm.
And that was like, the mandolin solo wasn't overcomplicated or showy or distracting because it was just the best that we could do at the time,
Mm-hmm.
not too many notes, not anything, just clean and pretty and listenable. And we're not overdoing it by fancying things up. It's just really clean. It sounded like an old timey record, in all the good ways. And then, at some point, we were kind of but at the time when I sort of split ways was Justin and all of us were recording with Steve Earle. He recorded an EP with us, and it was sort of to help groom us to get a record deal with Lost Highway at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And we're kind of headed that direction. And we recorded this really cool EP with Steve Earle and Ray Kennedy. And it was like, okay, this is like starting to be real. And we did a couple little tours, we toured through Texas a couple times. And so I'm the guitar player on the road. And I'd always had ambitions about, being a filmmaker. And I had, through this process, also been in and out of film school at Watkins. And I was still playing with them at the time, kind of trading back and forth and going on these little tours and stuff. And it just occurred to me, like, I wasn't going to be able to do everything, to be a filmmaker and be a touring guitar player. And I have so many friends that do that. And I have so much respect for them because, it is 99% travel,
Mm-hmm.
and it's so uncomfortable for so long. You really have to know that's what you're supposed to do. That's your calling is to be a musician and to play, especially when you're a musician in someone else's band, supporting their songs and their music, which is what I would be doing mostly. And gladly, would have been an honor to continue like that. And then layered into that whole thing too, was that, Justin had a lot of struggles with substance abuse and, really at a level that none of us other guys in the band were experiencing.
Mm-hmm.
And there was, really hard, intervention style things that happened, really just trying to get him to come around. And, God love him, man. He just really had a hard time, keeping on the straight and narrow. And, he was a passionate guy and, in all fronts. And, it eventually took his life. But back in those days, we're kids, we're like 18, 19 years old. And, I wasn't into the heavy stuff, and he had slipped over to the wrong side of the tracks a few too many times. And so some of that came into play too and was a distraction. And I just knew that I couldn't cut it and that I wouldn't be a value as much as somebody else who their true calling was to be a guitar player and be on tour. So there wasn't like a big, guys, I'm leaving the band and sorry. And this is it. It never was that. It was, Justin would have welcomed me back anytime. And I love that about him. That guy never made me feel like I didn't belong, even though I knew my technical ability, that I hope I made up for it with enthusiasm, could have been replaced anytime. And he never made me feel that way or gave me a sideways glance. And I always felt like I was right there in the pack with everybody. And I'll always be grateful to him for that. But I had to move on. I moved to LA when I was 24. And, that was just kind of not too long after dropping out of film school. So
I didn't realize you didn't finish film school. You decided to drop out?
Yeah, I had a crazy experience. So I was at Watkins. I was in the writing and directing program, and I was 2 years in, made some short films, was plugging along, made some friends there, collaborating with other people. And I get put in stuff too, a little bit as an actor, but I never took that seriously. I always thought that was just sort of funny. It was always sort of silly stuff. And then I heard they were making a movie down in Jackson, Mississippi. And the Coen Brothers were.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the first filmmakers that I understood kind of how strong tone can play a part in, the film language of a person's career. And I just, when I was younger, I'd like seen Raising Arizona. And then I saw Hoodsuck for Proxy in high school and was like, wait a second, there's something about this movie that seems like Raising Arizona. And it's Coen Brothers, and I was just hooked. And that was it.
Right.
I watched everything I get a hold of and just, stacked it up at Blockbuster, And so when I heard in film school, I was already obsessed with them, and heard they were making a movie in Mississippi, which was just a total fluke. I like dropped a book. It's like out of a movie, like dropped a book and had to like dig it out from the below. And I was late getting out of class. And one student was there talking to my teacher. And I heard her say, yeah, it's a Coen Brothers movie. They're shooting. And I was like, what? Like my antenna went up, and I went over, excuse me. You said the Coen Brothers are making a movie in Mississippi? And this girl was like, yeah, Carrie has a job on it. She's going to be an extras wardrobe assistant, splitting a paycheck with another girl who's also going to be an extras wardrobe assistant. And they're going to head down there. And I was like, well, is there any other, jobs available on the set? And well, I don't know. Maybe I could send in a resume. I'm like, well, great. So I don't know what my resume had on. I'd done nothing. I, made a few music videos for friends or something. So I type up, I'd be hilarious to see what that looks like today. But I typed up a resume, sent it into the production office in Mississippi, and crickets. I bugged my teacher to ask them, and she came back and said, they don't need anybody else. They don't need any PAs or anything like that. So I made another resume and made it look a little fancier and got some help and sent that one in. Same result. So I just begged this girl in my class who I didn't really know, Carrie, and then this girl, April, we're going to ride down there together. And I just said, can I just ride down there with you guys? And just see if I can see the set, see what I can see. And I'll just take a Greyhound back. And they said, sure. And this other guy, Blake McClure, who was a great DP and friend who I've known forever, I met him on that trip. He rode down there too. He was friends with April. He was actually engaged to April's sister at the time. So we go down there, and they sneak us into the cast and crew welcoming party as their dates. They're plus ones. And I'm just like gobsmacked. There's Joel Coen over there. Oh my God! I'm not going to try to talk to him. Holy crap! And there's Frances McDormand, and there's Holly Hunter, and these people are just there. And there's Roger Deakins. And wow. I was going, how do I get on this set? What can I do to figure out a way? And as luck would have it, this really great lady with a super strong Louisiana accent, Nancy James, she's like, well, Travis, I heard you want to work on the movie. Come on down. You can work with me, honey. And I said, well, wow, what do you do? She's like, well, I'm craft service. So I got a job on Oh Brother, Where Art Thou as the craft service intern. And it was the greatest summer of my life, not being paid to work on a Coen Brothers movie. And I had so
What
much
does a
fun.
craft service intern do that isn't already handled by the craft service, the crafty person?
Right. It was 100 degrees, 100% humidity, lots of extras on that movie, wearing hot period clothing. And so I had to hustle water, Gatorades around from like crew to crew. What was great is I had sort of autonomy for that reason. I was just shipping water around as much as I could, and on a golf cart, and then, helping set up craft service tables, and then, tearing them down, moving locations. We're just darting all across the countryside shooting this movie. So a lot of that stuff. But one other amazing thing was I was bringing the Coen Brothers their coffee in the morning. And Nancy James, I can't say enough about how great she was to me. She slipped me $100 every now and then. And I always had food to take home to the extended stay. We were all crammed into them, sleeping on a couch.
Right.
And she had me bring in the Coen Brothers their coffee in the morning. So I'd roll up there and there's Ethan doing the New York Times crossword puzzle, and he wanted his Pete's coffee, and then Roger Deakins wanted his tea, an Englishman, a certain way, in the morning, and I just figured out what they wanted and was just friendly. And Frances McDormand was hanging out on the set, and she had her son Pedro was 3 at the time, and I've been around with kids a lot growing up, babysat a lot. My mom, being a child care advocate, and there's a lot of kids around, so I knew how to talk to kids. And knew not to talk to kids like they were puppies, knew to kind of like, you show a child who's 3 years old some respect, and be like, hey, how you doing? I'm Travis. Nice to meet you, and not like, oh, hey, little buddy, And I think the kid wasn't used to that. And he just like looked up at me like, whoa, you're my friend, and so he'd follow me around. I wore a cowboy hat all summer too. People called me Tex on set all the time. And so I think he thought I was a cowboy. That's what I'm hoping was the case. Hoping I pulled that off at 19. And so I started kind of, Frances McDormand would be like, hey, do you want to babysit the kid? And I was like, sure. Yes, I would love to sit in George in Joel Coen's trailer eating Pringles, watching A Bug's Life with this 3-year-old while not being in 100-degree heat, hauling water around for an hour and a half after lunch, and she'd throw me $20 or something so she could go take a walk with Joel or whatever. And so we started this friendship, me and Fran. And she, after that summer, she brought me on the next movie as her assistant and driver, and she knew I could take care of Pedro. And jumping ahead, I was 20 years old then, and I'm in LA all of a sudden, driving Frances McDormand to work, using a Thomas guide to get around.
Unbelievable.
And there's a million stories about that, about
what a
working with
connection.
her.
What a connection.
Oh, man.
Between the time in which you were sort of learning either directly or by proxy from your mom about childcare, you probably couldn't have imagined how that would pay off for you so early without having to have children yourself.
Oh, man. Yeah, I have never thought of it that way, but yeah, that absolutely was a skill set that I did not see paying off in this industry, But
no, it's so funny how the universe works. It's almost as if your name was already written on the blackboard. Someone just needed to write it in chalk so that it could be seen. Is that why you're credited as Pedro Coen, by the way?
Yeah, assistant to Pedro Coen on The Man Who Wasn't There. That was their little gag because, what would happen was, I would, God, I'll never forget the first day I picked up Fran. She's out in Santa Monica, and I was sleeping on the floor behind a couch at this guy's house, this apartment over at it was like La Brea and Melrose. And behind, across the street from Pink's hot dog stand in LA, for anyone who's familiar with that area. And I'd met this guy as a tour manager for this rock band that I knew in Nashville. And he was just this absolutely insane guy. But really nice to me. He had a reputation for knocking people out a lot on tour. And he was a club promoter in LA, which means maybe he sold cocaine. I don't know. But he'd be out till 4 a.m. pretty consistently. And I'd be getting up around the time he'd be getting home. But I'd sleep on the couch sleep on the floor behind his couch in a sleeping bag. And I had 2 friends out there, Andrew Rosario and Jesse Parker. They were kind of just milling about in LA. And I got them a couple jobs on set here and there, extras and stuff like that. But they had other stuff they were working on. And so we all kind of shacked up there. So I get up at 4:30 in the morning or something, drive out to Santa Monica, pick up Fran. First day I picked her up, I put on a polo shirt, trying to kind of look professional, like a driver kind of guy, And she's sitting on the front stoop, just waiting for me. And she's like, "What are you doing with this shirt? Come on, don't do that, Trav. You don't have to do that." And I was just like, "I'm trying to look nice, And she's like, no, none of that. Cut it out. Let's go get some coffee, go to work, And that was our relationship. She just was my friend and really never asked me. She would always tell me I was on call all the time. She's like, "I'm not going to call you. for the next 4 days. Go have fun with your friends, do whatever you want, take the car, whatever. When I turned 21, she found out it was my birthday. I didn't want people on set to know because they'd make a big deal out of it, heckle me. So I didn't tell anybody. And she found out somehow. And she goes, what are you doing? What are you doing tomorrow? And I'm like, well, I don't know. Why do you ask? Well, it's your birthday, And she got me a car. She rented me a car, like a nice, SUV limo thingy. Nice. And she's like, I tell you what you're going to do. Car's going to come to your house, pick you up at 7:30 and take you and your friends wherever you want to go. Do not drink and drive, Trav. I was getting the lecture from Almost Famous from Frances McDormand.
Yeah.
And so on my 21st birthday, I'm riding around with my friends in LA and going to dinner and getting legal drinks for the first time. And all because of her. And she's just a wonderful, wonderful lady.
It's what a story.
What a crazy time, man. I was, God, it's crazy to think that was 21 years ago.
The way you tell it, it sounds like it was yesterday. There are a lot of people around the world that listen to this podcast that are mulling over the decision to either produce where they are or to move to Los Angeles and be part of the industry. And there seems to be a bias against someone who that on one hand says they want to do this more than anything, but on the other hand isn't willing to take the risk to move to where the industry is or lives. I didn't know what your opinion on that was, and if you had any memory of what the advantages were and disadvantages were when you moved out to LA.
Well, I think a lot of that bias probably comes from people that moved to LA and did it because I think a common experience is it's brutal. Like, it's just a hard place to go. I left this sort of shire of Nashville with all these friends and family people I'd grown up with my whole life, and nobody else moved out there, And I had a girlfriend at the time, and we went together, but that immediately fell apart when I got there, after moving in together and all that. And so that was a heartbreaking time because I felt all the more alone. But I stuck it out, and it was hard, and I didn't know what the heck I was doing. I was 24, and I didn't have really any real credits to speak of or know how to market myself as a director. And that's really what I wanted to do was somehow figure out a way to get in somewhere. And I had nothing. I had no prospects. I mean, I knew, some people, obviously from working on the Coen Brothers movies and stuff, that were very kind to me, but they were all sort of so far ahead, no one's gonna be like, yeah, why don't you come direct my next movie? It's not going to happen. So, and I also knew that being on the PA track, was going to lead to a career as an AD.
Right.
And that's the end of the line on that. And I didn't want to be an assistant director. So, the advice was basically like, you need to jump in and just start directing some stuff. And, I'd made short films, and I'd had a job at a production company in Nashville before I moved to LA, with this woman, Tamara Brooks, gave me a shot and gave me an office. And she'd seen a short film that me and Blake McClure had made called High Noon at Midnight that played some festivals. And that got me some attention and got me a job at a production company. So I'd done some commercials and directed, but it just was nothing. It was just small fries, it just didn't matter. And so I just couldn't get arrested out there. And so I was just, and I was so broke. I didn't have enough money to get a ticket and fly home and give up, And a friend took me to dinner, and he said, well, hey, how good of an actor are you? And I'm like, no, I don't know. I mean, I like to goof off. And he'd seen me I'd gotten cast as sort of this fluke in a Volkswagen commercial that my friend Kim Petrosky is a casting director. And I used to do this bit. She had an office near mine, and I'd jump in her office and I'd be like, listen up, there is 80 pounds of play sand that I delivered in the parking lot here, and somebody needs to damn pay for it. And, and the ticket says your office, and so I would harass her like this weird redneck delivery guy. And I'd do it to her, and she'd be like, get out of here, I'm busy, And, but then this commercial came up. They needed a Southern guy, really Southern guy. And they were casting all across the U.S. I didn't know this at the time, but they're casting like accents across the U.S. And she said, she came in and she had her camera and she goes, "Hey, I want you to read something." And so she's like, "Just do your redneck thing. Do the annoying thing I hate. It may become useful actually now." So I like held my name tag upside down and, "Hey, my name's Travis. I sure would be tickled to be in a commercial with y'all." Just really just yucking it up, being stupid. Mm-hmm. And I got the role. And it was Jonathan Dayton and Valerie Ferris were directing it, who did A Little Miss Sunshine. Yep. And they thought I was just some hillbilly. And they flew me to LA first class. First time I was ever on a first class flight. I'm just giggling. Everybody in first class is getting a kick out of me. Just like they'd bring me like, an ice cream sundae and I just giggle, and then everybody else would giggle, and I was like, wow, and I was maybe 22 or something. And they put me at the Standard on Sunset and somebody had my name on a card at the airport and I get to set and I meet Jonathan Dayton and Valerie Ferris and they're both wearing cowboy hats. And my line in the commercial is, "People here and there wearing genuine cowboy hats." And and I introduced myself. "Hey, how you guys doing? Nice to meet you. Thanks for having me out." And they're like, "Whoa, you don't have much of an accent in person, do you?" And I was like, "Well, I can certainly put it on if I need to." And they just both started laughing because they thought I was, because even, you do a slate when you do an audition and you say, you do your bit and then you say your name as yourself. But I was just goofing off trying to make Kim laugh. So I was going, "Boy, howdy, I sure would like to be in a commercial. That'd be something. What a trip," just being the character. So anyway, I digress. At dinner with my friend Aaron in LA. And he goes, "Well, you did that one commercial." And I'm like, "Yeah, but that was a fluke, He goes, "Tell you what, I want you to meet some friends of mine." He'd been in commercial casting himself. And he knew some people at an agency called Dragon Talent. And he said, "Why don't you go meet them and see what they say?" So I had a guy take a picture of me. I remember it was on slide film for some reason. And I looked depressed in it. And my hair's a mess and my shirt's inside out. But I went and got prints of it made. And I went to this agency and met this man named Chaim Magnum. Didn't make that up.
What a name.
And Robin Harrington. I remember Chaim had on his desk, he had one hard-boiled egg cut 4 times and 4 pieces of cheddar cheese about the same size, all lined up in a row in front of him. And he's really, really nice guy. I meet him. We shake. He looks at my headshot. He goes, "I guess this will work for now." And I'm like, "Okay, cool." So they signed me up. And also they're in Beverly Hills in this old theater, like this rundown theater building. And you had to go in this side door and get on a freight elevator that was only big enough for like one person. And that thing just like creaked and moaned as it went up. And you're like, "Oh my God, I'm going to die here." And then you get off this elevator, the top floor, like this sort of weird penthouse hallway. And there's a door open with like new age music coming out of it. Mm-hmm. I was like, I guess I walk in there. And that's kind of how I found them. Very mysterious. Anyway, they give me a job. They give me a chance. They send me an audition. My first audition in LA 2 weeks later. And it's for Milwaukee's Best Light beer. And I get the role. I get my first audition. I land the part. And that campaign went on for 3 years. We do 2 or 3 commercials every several months. It was non-union, but it was enough to pay my bills and keep me afloat. And it was just a total godsend that came at that time, because I really don't know that I would have been able to hack it much longer. And that just made another change. I thought, well, gosh, especially back then, you book a commercial and you make a chunk of change, Right. And I quickly had to join the union. I was doing, all the weird, quirky commercials like Skittles and Comcast and, other, McDonald's. And I just kind of took it all for granted how hard, how lucky I was. And I think that's part of why I booked, was because I didn't really understand that the 15 minutes that I was in a casting office was happening back to back all day long, looking at, weird dudes with curly hair like me for whatever role,
right.
The odds were not in my favor. And, but I'd book a job and I'd just go home to Nashville for a few weeks and get drunk with my friends and catch up with everybody and just fly back and just book another commercial. I thought that's what you do.
That was the whole life. Right.
And I look back now and just go, oh my God, that's just absolutely crazy that I thought that's how it could work. And I think that my naivety helped in that regard, because I was just still kind of starry-eyed, just like not realizing how preposterous it was to count on commercials to make a living.
You're fresh-faced and loose.
Oh man, yeah. Also, I didn't realize how annoying it was to my agency. They'd be like, "Cool, I booked one." I'd split town, and they'd be like, "You can't keep doing." I'm like, "Oh no, I'll be back," and because you fall out of rotation, because they can't let you audition for something if you're going to leave town or if there's a threat of that. So I think in that regard it helped too, because I would take myself out of rotation. And I'd come back and it wasn't like, oh, there's that guy again. We see him every week.
Yeah, you truly are a multi-hyphenate kind of guy. You've acted in so many things, but you're also a producer, a musician, an artist, a director. And I just wasn't sure, have you ever had any specific like acting training, or do you employ any type of acting technique? If I have this right, I believe you do something like 12 different accents. Like, how did you develop those? If you didn't do training, if you do have some sort of training or technique, please let us know and illuminate us.
Oh man, I probably said I do 12 accents on some site somewhere, and I probably do 3 poorly. But no, when I first went to LA, that was not a goal of mine. I didn't really think that was even a possibility for me to have a career as an actor. And I'm still amazed that happens sometimes. But I went to my friend, a producer, a guy named Michael Murphy, who's awesome. He produced Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure. He was a big encourager. He gave me a lot of encouragement to move to Los Angeles too when I was younger. He saw my short film that got me my job. And he took it to some producers in LA, and just was a champion of mine early on. And he produced a documentary I got to direct about samurai. It was animated. It was super fun. Soul of the Samurai.
Oh yeah, that looks so cool. That's called Soul of the Samurai. Yeah. It's animated, it's a documentary, and you can watch, I believe, a small bit of it on your website at littlebrotherfilms.com. littlebrotherfilms.com. And at the end, we'll find out where you can watch the whole thing. But that thing looked amazing.
Yeah, it was fun, man. It was cool. And he gave me that opportunity at a young age, before I went to LA. He had a acting studio called Howard Fine Acting Studio. And I went there, and it was really expensive, but I was making decent money on commercials and intense. Like if your cell phone went off, they fined you $200. And wow. You had to leave class. And so really strict that way, that very, very serious. And it was Uta Hagen technique, but there was like, Stanislavski and Meisner and other stuff folded in there. But the main thing was that they did a lot of background on character, and you were supposed to embody the character using elements from your own life and sort of transferring and sort of imprinting things that you could relate to personally. And it helped me a lot because I was going through this time where I felt really alone in Los Angeles and going through this breakup, and it was like therapy for me. And ultimately, that's when I first had a understanding and stronger respect for actors and acting. And I was able to see people work. We had some great actors in that class. My teacher was a working actor. People really worked hard, and it made me work hard and do scenes. And, make things personal, and just having people better than you around you at anything, I think, is a great gift. And if you can muster the courage to go toe to toe and try to make stuff happen,
well, I think that's a great point. Not to interject, but that's a really important point. The courage, one, to let somebody be better than you in the same room in such a way that you can learn from them and then compete with them.
Yeah.
As well. It's very underrated. I always get nervous when I do get the sense that I'm the smartest person in the room.
Man, if I'm the smartest person in the room, then we're in serious trouble. Like somebody needs to pull the
right. You want to run from that room, right? Like you're like, okay,
it's not a safe room.
I don't mind being the second smartest. I just don't want to be, and the real truth of it is that it's very flattering to be in that room.
Yeah.
That's the part that nobody mentions, is that when you are the most talented or the most notable or the smartest, even if it's your own opinion, that's a very flattering place to be. It's great for your ego. It helps you in these nuanced ways. But if you keep finding yourself in that place over and over and over again, you have to go back to sort of the understanding that you're the average of the 5 people you're around most. And you have to start sort of evaluating that. So I thought that was key that you mentioned that. I just wanted to highlight that for a second.
Oh,
so
yeah.
Please continue, sir.
Totally. Yeah. And that was the first time I had been around like working actors, real actors in an intimate way, preparing and watching the process and watching their performances evolve, the nuances that they would find, and really opened my eyes to that. I always respected actors and was obviously a fan of the medium and of acting and actors in film, and had always done stuff on my own, with my friends. But that always felt like part of the process. It didn't feel like, well, I'm acting on camera and I'm emoting and doing this. I had to, because there was only 2 of us, or a few of us there. So I was going to be one of the guys who was just servicing the project, not thinking of it that way. The enjoyment I got out of showing people short films and skits and things we made wasn't about them reacting to me being a goofball on camera. It was really that we'd made this and put it together. In the early days, it was just lucky. There was no editing. It was all in-camera edits, You need an establishing shot, right. You run outside and get it, and then run back inside and continue the scene, And I didn't realize that an element of that was I enjoyed acting. I enjoyed, how much I really did enjoy that part of it, and being a part of that, process. And I found it again there. And so I didn't have a lot of training. I did that class. I'm certainly know I could benefit from it more. I think I was impressed by actors that were in those classes that, one guy was on a sitcom, and it was a soap opera, but he's making, tons of money, and he's working. And he was in that class, and he'd done the class before. He came back through it. That made me respect him a lot, and people that did that, because, people can get cocky and go, I don't need it, And also, sometimes it's not people's process, I've got acting buddies who are really successful, and they've never been in class. They don't feel they benefit from it. They've tried it. It wasn't their vibe, and,
Will Smith types.
Sure, maybe so. And yeah, I mean, I'm close with Will, so yeah, he would tell you the same thing. Just kidding. But yeah, it's like he, and also it was not a comfortable thing for me, because I wasn't a theater kid. I wasn't used to taking it seriously, being vulnerable in front of anyone. So it was a growing experience, but yeah. But the rest was just enjoying the process of making stuff with my friends. Just really it's so fun, And
I want to touch on that a little bit, actually,
Sure.
Trav, about that, because most indie filmmakers, actors, creatives, etc., they dream of making a film or a show with their friends, and you actually pulled it off with Still the King.
Yeah.
You co-created the series. It's a CMT series. It ran from 2016 to 2017, 2018 with Potsy. And by the way, Potsy's new movie, Old Henry, awesome.
I've heard. I haven't seen it. Heard it's great.
Yes, I saw it at the film festival. It was great. Ponzarelli, if I'm pronouncing that right. But you did it. You made this show with all your buddies, and you had the writing, the producing, and the acting roles on your shoulders. How did you balance all of those without losing all your hair and your wits?
Man, I don't honestly know. I, through some grace, it was hard, man. It was really hard. And it was a challenge because it's like, on the one hand, you're getting this incredible opportunity and getting paid for the first time really in any kind of meaningful way. It was nothing for me, it was life changing, but it was, it wasn't like that, the real sweet TV money you hear about. It was like, okay, we're going to pay you for your time, sir. But it was year round, anything was forget about it. You're doing this now 100% of the time, because I really had to fight for my credit, to get an executive producer credit, to get my created by credit.
Why is that?
Well, I don't really know completely why. I think that there was some, I like to attribute it to people being naive about that process in the early stages of selling the show, because some of the people that I was collaborating with, I think misunderstood what it meant to be an executive producer on a project in television. And maybe we're equating it more to being in film. So people that had invested in our pilot wanted to be credited as executive producers, but that's kind of a indie film thing. But in television, it's whoever writes the script, who creates the show and the content, the characters and the story, and writes the physical script, which is what I did. That's the person who can vie for EP status, who can vie for created by status. So there was a little bit of a tug of war with some of the early collaborators about who gets created by credit and all that stuff, and some pretty shady stuff. And so I think I was just between us, misrepresented to the network in some ways early on as sort of he's an actor and he kind of helped write some stuff, when in fact I had written the original script with Potsy and absolutely was there every single step of the way from the very beginning. And I think that they maybe, and so I'm not completely sure, but it came down to this moment where it was a really stressful time, man, because, when and I think that a lot of people that are in this industry that are listening to this or that, a funky thing can happen when a project gets close to being sold, when money starts to come in as a factor, when people can, their eyes can glaze over a little bit, and they'll start trying to figure out how big a piece of pie they're going to get, and it can get kind of weird. Mm-hmm. And people's darker natures can come out at times, and I try to forgive them for all that, because I think they honestly just didn't really know a lot about the process. And ultimately, though, there was a bit of a standoff at one point where I wasn't going to be extended an executive producer credit. But, everybody else, other people that I didn't even know were getting executive producer credits. Potsy was getting executive producer. And I was like, no, I have to have that, because I knew from prior experience that if I didn't have that credit, then I wouldn't be at the table. And I would be, if something happened that I felt like didn't represent my integrity on the project or the project creatively, that I could be, outnumbered. and outvoted if I didn't have that credit. And that was the main thing. It wasn't a money thing. I didn't get paid more for that in this situation. I know that can happen sometimes. There was no attachment to that. But so the vice president of Viacom, of CMT, and another executive called me, and they said, man, we're really sorry to say we can't give you an executive producer credit. We can give you a co-EP credit, but that's the best we can do. And they couldn't say why. I was going, well, why is that? You can understand how this is hard for me to swallow, because I created the show and it's my script, and there's all these other people that are EPs. And so it was kind of a shady thing, man. And I said, and they said, unfortunately, we can't make the show with you as an EP. And so I had to call their bluff. And I had incredible support from my lawyers. Funny thing, the girl that I moved to Los Angeles with, who we split up when I got there, really tough breakup, is married to my lawyer. And that's how I know him. And I would see him, back. He's a musician as well. Fantastic guy, Bo Stapleton and Philip Rosen. They were at Rosen Law Group. And
yeah, I know them. They did another version of you. Of course.
Yeah. Amazing guys.
Yep.
They were just angels during that process. I mean, they just encouraged me, said, don't pick up your phone. Don't listen to that. They don't know what they're talking about. And they were like, do not let them tell you that they're not going to make the TV show over a credit. And don't believe them if they say that. But God, I was spooked, man. It was like my first big TV deal. And they're saying, we're not going to make the show if you insist on being an EP. And I had to go, well, gosh, guys, really sorry to hear that. And I wish things were differently, but unfortunately, I can't do that. And God, I really want to do this with you guys. And I sure hope that we can work on something again in the future. And they're going, gosh, golly gee, we sure do too. And we love you, man. And sorry it went this way. And we hang up the phone and I'm like, oh my God, what have I done? Did this whole thing just fall through my fingers? And at this point, mind you, we'd shot a pilot. We've been in development on this for like almost over a year. We've been, doing all this process. So I had so much time and so much sweat in the game. And of course, and I was here in Nashville at my parents' house, pacing around the backyard, barefoot, freaked out, couldn't sleep, felt like I had an ulcer. And around 9 a.m., my phone rings and it's some assistant from LA. And he's going, hey, is this Travis? Hey, I got some great news for you. They figured out the credit thing. You're actually going to be an executive producer now. Congratulations. And I was just like, and so that was such a valuable lesson for me. And I owe a huge debt to Bo and Philip, because they really held my hand through that process. And without them assuring me that this was a bluff, I don't know what I would have done. I might have been like, all right. And that would have been a bad move, because there were many instances along the process of the years following 26 episodes where I needed to know what was going on, and I needed to be able to have a say, and I needed to be taken seriously by Billy Ray Cyrus and the other executives, and have my voice heard, because this was my project and it was my entire life at the time. Like you're in you're in the writer's room first. We had eight brilliant writers, amazing people that we got to write with. We get you get the writer's room together. You're writing, that rolls into pre-production. So you're still finishing scripts while you're setting up your production office. You're relocating to Nashville. First year we had a writer's room in LA. Second year was half LA, half Nashville, which was cool. But yeah, and then you're in pre-production, then you're rolling into production, then you're in post-production. And I was involved in every step of the way because, I had to be. I wanted to be too. It was my show, I'm going to be there for the last frame of color correction because I wanted to. And I love the process. I love everything about it. But as soon as post-production's over, I think we had like a couple of weeks, and then we were in the writer's room for season 2. And
Wow.
It's just absolutely crazy. This job, there's just so many moving parts, and I somehow suckered myself into having a hand in every element of it. And I'm forever grateful, but it was tough. So it was a double-edged sword. My personal life was non-existent for that in a lot of ways. And you're just tired all the time, and you're just trying to perform under this pressure. And I just have such a respect for people that and this is just this little show, this little show in Nashville with my friends. Like a lot of these people I'd worked with for years, and I got to hire a bunch of my buddies to come act on the show and bring people in. And then I'm just still so amazed by some of the people we got to come be on the show, and actors that we got to come, read. You just see somebody like at one point, Alan Ruck read for a role.
Yeah.
And so I'm looking at Cameron from Ferris Bueller saying dialogue that I wrote to Cameron. Like, this guy, and he's on Succession now. God, I wish we'd had him.
I was gonna say tonight Succession comes back.
I'm gonna go watch it here in a minute. It's like, and but to see, and you just realize, like, man, everybody just wants to play. Everyone wants to work. We had Wayne Knight, who played Newman on Seinfeld and was in Jurassic Park, one of my favorite childhood movies. He came and was on our show on an episode that I wrote, and it was just like, this is insane. But you're just...
Yeah, y'all's cameos on this show was unbelievable and very fitting of a show like that, where you've got Billy Ray Cyrus, and, Nashville is as much of a character in the show as the characters themselves.
Yeah, I think
it lends itself to cameos.
I think some people still think, just because of Billy Ray's sort of brand, that maybe it's like a reality show or something. Because I get interviews, or just people I talk to sometimes, because I'm constantly being interviewed, will say, yeah, so, growing, doing reality TV for you, how did you? And I'm like, I've never done reality TV. But it's hard to see, CMT, it was marketed, when we went with CMT, they were like, this is a new network. We're rebranding everything. This is going to be scripted television. We're taking over this whole thing. It's going to be a whole new division of Viacom. They have this whole plan. And we thought, cool. And we got away with a lot. We got to be a lot grittier than anything I thought CMT would let us do. But at the same time, you see the commercials like, Billy Ray Cyrus is up to it again. What's he going to do this week? It's like, it's still the game on CMT. It's like, that's not the brand. That's not our show. That's not the tone of our show. It was like a cartoon version of it. So, yeah. So, and then of course the whole thing fell through. CMT had bought Nashville. They'd made Sun Records in Memphis, and I think spent all the rest of their money on making pilots that didn't get bought by Viacom, and it just fell through. And all the executives that we had left. But yeah, it was amazing to do that for 2 years. And what does it have
a comeback in it?
I don't think so. I'm pretty sure that when we talked about it. I talk to Billy Ray every now and then. He's just such a character, man. He's what a great guy to get to be around sometimes. He's just truly one of a kind of a person who just...
Yeah, he doesn't get enough credit for Old Town Road.
Man, he's just half in the spirit world, man. The guy, he listens to signs. He's always going, when you said that just then, that reminded me that da-da-da, and he connects things like that. He just has this, and you look at his career and you go, my God, you had this, one hit wonder, Achy Breaky Heart, huge smash hit, broke all the records, crazy, huge song, and out of the blue, and then years later, Old Town Road's the most certified song of all time. It stayed
of all time.
It stayed on number one on the charts longer than any other single. I mean, it is crazy. And that whole story about how Lil Nas X got a hold of them and that whole thing too is just absolutely amazing.
There you go.
We did an episode with Billy Ray on our podcast last season. Set It Straight with Midland on Spotify, season 1. There's a great episode with Billy Ray on that he talks about that whole journey, and he's great. And I loved acting.
Hope this audience will go listen to that for sure.
Oh, I hope so. But yeah, man, playing his buddy, getting to do like an accent that I probably slip into naturally after a couple drinks, or certainly if I get on the phone with somebody from Nashville that has a Southern twang, it comes out. But just kind of getting to fall into that drawl and wear cowboy boots and be a redneck conspiracy theorist was one of the greatest joys of my life. I mean, playing Walt on Still the King is just like, I don't know how I got so lucky, man. That was so cool. And I'm so into that stuff anyway. I love reading about UFOs and Bigfoot and anything that's, unsolved or paranormal. And so I got to make fun of myself for 2 years with a group of people in the Paranormal Men's Society, PMS. I don't think they thought that through before they made the patches, but
It seems to be a theme in your life, though. I mean, you're in the right place at the right time. You're able to deploy your lived experience and lived and learned lessons in the most important moments and when it counts. And because of that, you've been rewarded over and over and over again. I think you're going to get rewarded some more coming up here. You have East Side Story, you've got Mirror Rim, you've got Morse Code, which you're working on, kind of quiet project that you're working on in the background. I think you're going to strike gold again, as Elric Hahn would say. What are two pieces of advice that you've received in your career? The two best pieces, I should say, that you've received in your career so far, and who did they come from?
When I was first around somebody that I thought was truly the pinnacle of success, and I still think that, is George Clooney, right? I just think he's had such an incredible career. He's a wonderful person to be around. I've never heard anybody speaking a word about him, and I have had the opportunity to work on 2 movies with him. And he was always so kind to me. And that was kind of his MO. He would find the lowest person on the set. Here I am, the craft service intern. And he was so good to me and just cool. And I try to pick his brain every now and then. And, he'd tell me stories about like going back to Kentucky and being around his buddies at their favorite dive bar, watching the game, having a beer. And they'd be like, you're really slumming it up with us, aren't you, George? And he was like, if I could only express to them that this is absolutely the thing I want to be doing more than anything else. This is not, I'm not lowering myself. This is absolutely who I want to be around, what I want to be doing, and not judged and not looked at as some kind of highfalutin whatever. And he showed that to us kids on the set a few times. I knew this guy who was his stand-in who looked nothing like George Clooney. Not a bad looking guy or anything, but just didn't look anything like him. And he was just around the same height, and he had dark hair. And and he was just loving it. We were all, 19, and so he was signing autographs and stuff, Well, we're in this bar. It was a crew party for somebody's birthday on the crew. And so he kind of bought out a bar and let us all hang out there. And we're kind of like hiding our beers, taking a sip every now and then. And George is there. We're talking to him. And, some locals had brought friends. Most of it was crew, but there's a few people there we didn't know. And my friend says, "So, George, what's it like to know you could take any girl in this bar home with you tonight?" And I was like, oh, I just felt the air suck out of the room. I was like, why'd you say that? We're having a great conversation. Oh, God, why'd you say that? And George gets this grin on his face, and he says, well, check this out. And he saunters over to the bar, and there's this girl there that we didn't know who didn't work on the movie. And you know, bless her heart, she was trying pretty hard. She had her boobs all pushed up and lots of makeup on. He's walking right towards her, making a beeline for her. And I was like, what's he about to do? Like, this is weird, you know? And he walked right towards that girl and then turned the last second and talked to this old lady for like an hour and didn't even look back at us. And I saw that register on my friend's face, you know, his like sort of smile, like, whoa, he's going to go talk to that girl. And then just the confusion on his face. And I was like, what a cool way to teach a lesson to somebody who is impressionable, who needs to know how to be a gentleman and how that's not important and how you should never use fame or power in that way. It's just a really ugly thing that has. So that made a big impression on me, is really how he treated us. That was just things like that. Somebody that's that successful, having integrity. And I hope that I've lived that way. I think that I try to, you know, I try to keep my word, you know, when I can, and be accountable. And you know, if I say I'm going to do something, I try to do it, and do the best I can to be honest about things, because this is a long game, man. This is like, you can't, you gotta like, you gotta keep it straight. And I think more so even now these days, like, people that abuse their power, that are dishonest, that do things that aren't cool to people, that behave badly on sets, that are, you know, that's not being put up with anymore. You know, the world is smaller, and, you know, you can get away with it for a while. But it's so much easier to not. If you don't, you know, BS people, then you don't have to worry about something coming back around. And, you know, there's so many people that you work with on all these projects, you know, over the years. Cruiser can be big and small, and, you know, you're going to encounter people again, you know, and, if you did them wrong or said something bad about them, then, you're going to see them again, you know? And, you know, there's always that sort of talk about like, you know, it's not enough to succeed. You have to watch your best friends fail. I don't know if it's quite that dark, but, you know, you can have a quote unquote overnight success in this industry when you've been hustling for 20 years. Nobody's heard of you. And then the next day you're on Jimmy Kimmel and you're talking about this crazy thing you have to do. That happens all the time in this industry. And, it can create a lot of disparity between, you know, the people that you came up with who may deserve it more. I mean, I've met so many incredibly talented people who absolutely deserve every opportunity I've ever been given and just haven't gotten it yet. And you have to have a lot of patience. And, you know, I'm not anywhere near where I want to be in my career. I'm 42 years old. You know, I had a TV show. I'm grateful for it, but I pray that that's not the high water mark for me. You know, I've always wanted to direct movies since I was a kid. That's still my dream. Trying to make it happen. And, but I also can acknowledge that there's people that I know that would kill for the opportunity to have a television show on CMT starring Billy Ray Cyrus, you know, and I'm of course grateful for that too, but, you know, you can't measure your success against anyone else's, or you'll just, I mean, it's hard not to, but I try not to do that, because it is, that's just a painful thing to put yourself through, because it takes the enjoyment out of it, you know.
Absolutely.
The doing of it should be enjoyable, no matter what it is. And If you're sitting around going, sure wish I was doing that, then you're not going to look at what you're doing now. And
right. And the point you made about it being a long game, we have a series that we do that we just concluded. We did 52 episodes. These are like micro episodes, Travis, cool. Where each one's like 2 minutes long. It's called the Film Investment Series, and it just kind of goes through our experience investing in independent film on the ground floor. And one of the things we talk about is this principle of long games with long-term players. So long-term games with long-term players is a big piece of advice we give and we repeat over and over and over again. And that's just a big part of it. You basically want to create relationships where you can keep playing the same games over and over with incredibly talented people. And a big part of that is making sure you don't destroy relationships on set by being an ass.
Right.
What are the biggest creative and business mistakes you see newcomers making?
I think it is pretending that you know more than you do, maybe. like I see people feeling like they need to posture and act like they got it all figured out already. And if you've been doing this for a while, you just see right through that immediately, and it's not a good look. I think a lot of these people learn later on. It's okay to admit you don't know something. It's okay to keep learning. It's okay to give credit to your peers. Trying to shine a light on yourself by using other people. This is a very collaborative process, and anything you do, anyone will tell you, it's like, anybody who does this knows it's just, there's a million moving parts, and whether, where you are in the process, you get a lot of help. And I see people doing that when they first start out. They feel like they need to get ahead quickly. And so they don't give credit to the people that help them. They don't acknowledge the collaboration. And I think that's a big mistake because to me, it's a better look to go, look at all these fantastic people that I convinced to work on my project with me, that I collaborate with, that I enjoy spending time with and working with, that I admire, and they're working with me. And I think that's a better look to be like, I did all this stuff. I did it all myself, and I think that just kind of, it's just not a good way to be. And you hear about people like paying somebody off that wrote their movie and then taking their name off of it, and putting their name on instead. And that happens a lot. And I know that's happened on higher levels, but if it's a big studio film and a director wants to come on, they negotiate and go, well, it's going to say written and directed by this big director. And even though the script was acquired by these other writers and they have to be paid as like shadow writers and stuff, that's all kind of unfortunate to me. The whole ghostwriter thing. I think that there shouldn't be any harm to being like, written by so-and-so and so-and-so and so-and-so, directed by so-and-so. It's not going to, no one cares. There's a lot of ego and pride that goes with that. But I think that's a shame, especially when you're starting out, to not acknowledge the people that help you do it. And that's just not a solid foundation to build your career on. And I've seen people that are new do that. And man, it makes it, people are really polite in the film industry. Everyone's nice to your face because, especially if you've been doing it for a while, you're going to see them again probably. And, but if they know that you didn't give them credit, you were manipulating things behind the scene or whatever, they're not going to work with you and they're not going to actively try to help you in your career anymore. And so I try to live by those principles.
I think it's true. I think if I had to critique Banzai early on, it's that we were so eager to get into the film business and get our name out there that we were so nice in the negotiation process. And really everything up into the point in which it gets decided who's making what and when and how much, everybody's super nice. Everybody's super cool.
Right.
And then in that process, that's when the real personalities come out. That's when, and you don't realize that, okay, if you got good terms and the other producer didn't get as good of terms, and maybe you're not even aware of that, all of a sudden they start acting crazy on set. And then everything was nice, everything was wonderful, and now someone's acting different because of something that happened during the contracting process you're not aware of.
Right.
Or you have to fire some crew, or you have to, like, all these things that happen around the actual money giving and making part of the business. That's where all the real truth happens. Everything else is just industry politics stuff to me.
Oh yeah. I mean,
and we had to learn to get a lot tougher and ask a lot more questions at that point in the process.
Right. And, I've learned those same lessons the hard way at times. It's the thing too is, you can always be nice. Just tell them what you want and don't fold, be reasonable, but you can always be a nice guy, but know your value.
Right.
And, that's something I think that, everyone struggles with at times, but know your value, know what you have to offer, and stand by it. I mean, it's hard, man. I'm a sensitive guy. I'm a creative person. It's hard not to take things personally sometimes. Read this great book called The Four Agreements. And I think it actually works really well in the film industry. These principles, I think, apply in life in general, but I got a lot of philosophy from my parents. They're followers, of all kinds of different spiritual practices. One is
you're a follower of Yogananda,
right? Yogananda, Self-Realization Fellowship. Love him. He's an incredible resource, and one of the biggest assets for understanding Yogananda's contribution to yoga in the West is just meditation, learning about meditation. And I can't say I have a great practice, but I try, and I learned how to meditate as a kid, and my parents meditate. And he's a super valuable resource for just the basic principles of meditation. It's not really a religion. It's sort of like, I still, we still would read about Christianity, learn about Jesus growing up and all that. Christianity is a complicated thing in the South, but I generally like what Jesus had to say, what Christians had to say, not always as much. But yeah, learning meditation and stuff, but also kind of, we lean into other, I would be exposed to things like Eckhart Tolle and all this stuff was really helpful to me, especially with the pressures of making my first show and all the responsibilities and kind of being pulled in all these different directions, kind of having that as a grounding force, almost out of desperation, just forcing myself to meditate, just to clear my mind a little bit. And you can kind of step back from your thoughts a little bit and go like, whoa, there's a lot going on there. And you go, okay, I'm observing it now, not in the middle of it. And if you can get out of your crazy lizard brain for a minute and kind of just notice your thoughts. I know it sounds kind of strange, but you know what I mean? You kind of step back and go, all right, there's a lot going on there, dude. I can't,
right.
I think a lot of us creative people that write and have stuff ticking around up there all the time. It's good to sometimes, I'll be working on a project for a long time and then I not even realize I'm thinking about it, and I'll say something out loud like a crazy person. It's just like, and that's why I wouldn't have done it that way, whatever. And you're like, whoa. Like, and then you go, oh, that was just the tail end of a thought I wasn't even aware of that now has been vocalized. And I'm not really that far removed from the person on the bus who's yelling obscenities. but to be able to go, oh, that's happening. And I can step back from it and look at it for a minute and go, okay, without trying to control it or judge it, just be like, all right, yeah, lot going on. But I stepped out of it for a minute. If you can do that a little bit, I think it's really helpful. And yeah, those 4 agreements, like always be immaculate with your word. Like just tell the truth. Don't take things personally. Don't assume anything, and always do your best. And, easier said than done. It's hard to be honest all the time, because sometimes you don't want to hurt somebody's feelings. And sometimes you don't want to, there's times when you're like, if I tell them this truth, but it's always the right thing to do,
Yeah. Yeah, I totally agree. And I'm curious if there's any advice you have for someone that wants to start a meditation practice to maybe enhance their creativity or clarity.
I would say first of all, don't be precious about it. There's so much pomp and circumstance about meditation. Like if you don't do it exactly the right way or the way everyone says to do it, that you're not going to achieve results. And I'd say, put that aside. This is not a competition, for who can bend the most and stay still the longest. And that's something that I think that I've suffered from, like trying to do it exactly the perfect way. But try stuff out and experiment, and what makes you comfortable. Something that was cool about Yogananda is when he came here, he comes from India, 1920, and we're all a bunch of knuckleheads who don't know anything about yoga. That was not anything we knew. So he adapted a lot of the meditation techniques to Western society, where you could sit in a chair and sit upright and do breathing techniques and things like that, where you're not in full lotus posture on the floor in Indian style, which is where the practice he came from, because he knew that would be a deterrent to getting people started. And so there's a lot of adaptability that he brought to the West back then. A lot of his early techniques are just really simple. And it's all free, it's like, it's not a religion or a cult or anything. It's like, just, you can go to any place where there's a beautiful place in LA I'll go out to sometimes, out in the Pacific Palisades. It's like a man-made pond. And there's a meditation center there, and it's a church of all, you walk in and every world religion is represented by a big plaque, and it's just open to the public. And like Elvis used to go there, and like George Harrison would hang out there. And it's just a cool thing. And that's what I really like about a Self-Realization Fellowship, is that it's not a religion. They don't advertise. They don't recruit people. You don't pay dues. There's just meditation techniques and lessons you can get, and you get them in the mail. And it's all kind of, real simple stuff. There's not like long mantras or complicated, super complicated techniques. They get more advanced, but yeah, that's a long-winded explanation. And I also do not want to be regarded as any authority on this, but my personal thought is, don't take it all too seriously. It's really meant to be something to help you relax and to help you have a deeper inner life and know yourself better. And that should not be a chore or a like, it should be fun. You should make it interesting however you can, whatever it is that gets you to sit still for 5 minutes and then maybe 10 minutes. And then eventually, you might start enjoying yourself in that space long enough to really sit there for a long time. And there's no end to it, man. It's infinite. It's like you're never going to stop improving. It's like anything in martial arts or becoming a painter or anything that we do. You're always trying to get better at it. That's what's cool about it, and also what's daunting about it. So just start trying some stuff. And get on the path, because you're never gonna, beyond achieving full enlightenment in this lifetime or whatever. Hey, go for it. Maybe you will, but you got to start. And
I need to get back to it myself. I got to a place where I could go for 30 minutes or about 45 minutes, maybe.
Yeah.
And then my group that I was doing it with started dwindling. Like we started with 12 people, then it got down to 8, and then it was 6, and then it was 2. And it was like, once it got down to just me and the guy who was leading it, I think it just sort of fell off.
Sure.
And I need to find another group or just have the discipline to do it on my own. But during the time that I was doing it every single, day or every other day, it was incredibly powerful. And I was able to create life design and have some thoughts that I use to this day in mentorships that I'm a part of, and leadership that I'm a part of. And I really do need to get back to it.
Speaking of this is a funny thing that I think is pretty fascinating about meditation, about the discipline of meditating. Because I feel like everybody feels this way. I need to get back to that. I don't do it. Even people that, and then you go, how much do you have? Yeah, I only do 2 hours a day. I'm like, God, everybody feels that. But the funny thing is like, that I just marvel at, is that when I sort of make a plan, like I'm going to meditate today. I'm going to take 5 minutes. I'm going to find a quiet minute and do 5 minutes of meditation today. The sort of hilarious thing that happens where you're like, okay, I'm going to do that for sure, but I need to take care of this first. And I need to take care of that. I will find things that I wouldn't wish on my enemy to have to do to avoid sitting with myself for 5 minutes. I'll like dig up my taxes, before I'll sit down for 5 minutes. And that to me is a really profound thing because it's a force. I feel it. And I've had this conversation with lots of people that try meditation. It's like, that is a compelling and very real kind of force, whether it's like completely self-imposed or, or if it actually is some kind of a vibratory resistance in the universe, of the atmosphere that's like, you want to keep your ego. You don't want to dissolve any of that.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever it is, it's just kind of hilarious. Like the lengths I'll go to avoid sitting down for 5 minutes in quiet. So that in that regard, it is helpful to have a group, but that idea that there is this force convincing you not to do it, only to me speaks to how powerful it actually must be for us to actually do that and grow our inner space, self-awareness. The fact that there is this preventative pull that exists. Yeah. It just makes me go,
right,
man, there's some Jedi stuff going on then, isn't it? Like, there's some opposing force that I felt in my life many times. And the same thing goes for if you're a writer, if you're thinking about starting a project, all that fear and doubt and stuff, that is all malarkey. That is stuff that is like, if it's strong, then it's worth doing it. And I try to tell myself the same thing. If I'm trying to write a project and going, man, I don't know how good this is. Why I even started, or whatever crazy stories you tell yourself. It may never go away, but I like to look at that and try to smile in the face that I go, I see you trying to keep me from doing this thing.
Right.
Because it's going to benefit me if I do it. Even if it doesn't turn into something, it's all going to benefit me. And so I'm going to do it to spite you. Weird, dark force,
That's an exceptional piece of advice and an exceptional sort of thought nugget that we should highlight, because I really haven't had, we're now over 100 episodes or at least 100 interviews deep. And I haven't heard anybody put it that way before, where the thing that you're trying to resist must have force and power and good in it because you are trying to resist it.
Yeah.
Like you, if you find that you're resisting doing a thing, that's your signal, that's your bat signal to go full speed toward it and suck up on your excuses and your ego and everything else.
Yeah. Cause it's tough. This thing we've picked to do. It's a tough thing. I try to give myself an out and go, man, maybe you can just, go record more music or like, I love painting. I do a thing where I paint things with coffee. I mean, you
have coffee paintings. I was going to ask you, are you going to sell any of those coffee paintings?
Yeah, you can. got a little Instagram account that I need to update, but it's like Coffee Paintings by TN, I think is what it is. And I have a Facebook page, but yeah, there's stuff like that. You go, oh, but I'm just always drawn back, man. This to me is such a fantastic, like, kind of my neighbor just drove by and went, "What up?" That was the honk you heard earlier. Yeah. I live over here in Inglewood, and I just, I love this neighborhood. People still walk around and wave at you and stuff. And
so for the audience, Inglewood is a community in East Nashville where I would say the lion's share of the artists and foodies and poets and filmmakers and writers all live. So sorry, Trev, go ahead.
Man, I got, in this market, I got really lucky. I got this house in July, and, for all of the struggle and I don't know, that makes me sound ungrateful, and I don't mean to sound that way at all. I really am so grateful for having that television show, but also it was one of the hardest times of my life. And then you go, well, we had this crazy stuff happen, where we found out we were underpaid for our being producers on the show. And the Writers Guild was amazing. I've been in the Screen Actors Guild now for, 20 something years. And then in the Writers Guild, I joined when we got the show. I was allowed to join the guild then. And, guilds don't always have a great reputation for like doing a lot for us. And the Writers Guild came through, and I was part of a big class action lawsuit. They sued Viacom and got us awarded, a big settlement that I got a tiny piece of. And had that not happened, had the guild not uncovered that they were underpaying us, basically the guild was like, you got to pay. If you have a writer in the Writers Guild working on your show for months in post-production, and you're not paying them any kind of weekly or anything, you got to at least pay them a weekly writer's fee, even if it's a small one. And
absolutely.
So we got the settlement, and that's the only way I was able to ever consider. I mean, anyone hearing this who's a creator in creative industry knows how sporadic your income is and how hard it is to get a loan, build credit, all those kind of things that our friends with straight jobs can benefit from. Also, I'm just terrible with that stuff. I'm not, as a lot of my friends that are creative people, and I'm not making excuses. There's also creative people who are very organized, and I stand in awe of those people. But yeah, without that settlement coming through, there's no way I would have been able to consider getting a loan, getting a house. And that's another thing I think to really try to consider is when you start, making money in this industry, ask questions and get help, because we're not raised, at least not where I went to school. And I think it's an American failing, is we're not raised to have financial stability or understand taxes and how to build credit and how to I certainly didn't learn that in high school. And then I didn't go to business school after, I was in film school, right, and they certainly weren't talking about taxes there. So if I could go back, I would really have tried to educate myself. And it's still a process, but I formed an LLC at the beginning of Still the King, and I maintain that. And, I'm really glad I did. I think it helps separate me and my business from personal liability. And, I'm able to be viewed as a corporation. And when money comes into that in ways, then it helped me get a loan because I could show income from this business. And it wasn't just Trav getting piecemeal chunks of cash here and there from whatever scrappy thing I was able to pull off that month,
Right. It's such a valuable lesson I really have a problem with high schools not teaching money and not teaching entrepreneurship.
Yeah.
I think those two things. And we should find a way to make sure that film schools across the country are teaching show business, not just show.
Yeah.
There has to be a way to make these creatives that go through these schools smart about contracts, rights, taxes, everything you just mentioned. It's critical. And you wouldn't hear some of these horror stories, I think, if you had that education as a foundation. And the fact that it's missing and it's persistent and it's been missing so long, Trav, it almost feels like intentional.
Yeah.
And that's the worst, feeling of all.
Oh man. I mean, geez, they're smart if that's the case, because they sure got me good, man. Whenever it's like you got it, because you're not, a lot of times something else that, if you form an LLC, then you have to make quarterly payments, or you have to put that money away. And basically you have to go, I got a buddy, an actor who he got his first $1 million offer on a movie. Right. And I was like, that's incredible. Oh my God, that's amazing. And he goes, well, I'm only going to see $375 or so $1,000 of that will be my money, because when you get to those levels, you got a business manager. Oftentimes they're going to take about 5%. You've got a lawyer. If you're under a contract, they got a 5% deal. You've got a manager. They're going to take 10%. You got an agent. They're going to take 10%. So that's 30 off the top right away, gone. And then the government is going to take, 30, 35. And then there you are. And that's just crazy. That really opened my eyes when he told me that. Like, wow, it's really, and then beyond that, you might get that money and it might look like you have that money, but you got to put away, you got to just pretend it's not there and put away 30, 35%. Cause if you have an LLC too, you're not necessarily getting, 1099 or whatever the form is, where you put your dependents on there. Oftentimes that money comes to you, and it's on you to make your own deductions and to, calculate.
Right, and then there comes another fee where you have to get a good CPA because you don't know how to make those deductions.
100%.
But the trick is that you'll get the 35 or 30 to 35% from taxes. You'll get that money, so you'll actually see about 600,000. But that there's a giant chunk of that has to go out in taxes, and so if you spend it, you're screwed. And that's where the discipline comes in. It's like, do you have the discipline to ignore 30 to 35% of your money that's in an account somewhere?
Yeah.
And did you get the business education to understand that money sitting in a bank is purposeless and to the benefit of the bank, and that you should put your money in a diversified portfolio of investments where your money grows over time, since it's just going to sit there anyway? But
I never was whispered to me until I was, until I ever made any amount of money. And I took my money out of my bank account and put it in a stock exchange, and, did really well. And it's incredible that I didn't know that for so long.
Exactly.
I just would have, I never had a big balance. I was always broke in LA. God, I don't know how anyone does it. I don't know how I did it for so long. I would just make enough money to pay rent and then figure out another way to pay rent again the next month, Then, when I had at one point I had $10,000 or $15,000 because I'd just done a big commercial, and I was like, man, I don't have to work again. I thought that was incredible. And, and I wish that I had somebody be like, hey, all you got to do is open up an E-Trade account or whatever, or Robinhood or whatever it is, and just put your money. It's so easy to do. And we all can do it on our phones now. And as long as you're not trying to become some kind of hotshot trader without any knowledge, you just put it in there and you leave it alone. And,
there's a great, I don't know if it's a cliche yet, but a credo, if you will, in stock trading, which is if you don't know what the market's going to do nothing.
100%.
And that just says, hey, you're going to take a massive hit during a recession. Don't do anything. Chill out. Market comes back. Because ultimately, when you're really, really long and you're a value investor and you're long on it, what you're really betting on is America. You're saying, I think America is still going to be here in 30 years. So I'm just going to leave my money alone or contribute even more to it in a recession and buy down. That's all you're saying. And so if you're nervous about America succeeding or failing, that might be when you want to pull out of certain markets and go into other things. But yeah, it's a great lesson. And Trav, I think this is a wonderful place for us to maybe conclude part one. I think it would be awesome to have you on for another conversation.
Oh man, I'll
round two, if you will.
I'll talk as long as you'll let me, man. I hope that in any way, anything that we've talked about could help anybody that hears this, because I could not have possibly gotten by without the encouragement of people and people reminding me that this is supposed to be fun and this is supposed to be a good experience, and having these conversations with somebody who's been gracious enough to dig through my history and remind me of these things. It's always a benefit to me as well. So I really appreciate the opportunity to go down memory lane and remind myself it's just worth doing, and I'm not a total failure, and that I have some things to look forward to. So I really appreciate it, man.
Anytime, and quite the contrary. You have so much to give everyone in this audience and everyone you run into, helping them sort of skip over mistakes that you've made in the past, helping them understand successes you've had in the past. It's invaluable. So tell everybody where they can find you on social media, on the internet, or maybe even see some of your work.
Okay, I've got a website. It's littlebrotherfilms.com, in various stages of update. But I try to host my projects there. And talk about what I'm doing when I can. And then I've got, my Instagram is Travis History, @TravisHistory. I'm trying to get better about posting. I'm not a big social media guy, but when we're about to start doing some more sketch comedy stuff, so I'll look forward to putting some of that stuff up there. And all the other stuff, Facebook, I'm easy to find. But yeah, the website's probably the best place to see stuff, or just come say hi in Inglewood. Let's go get a coffee, people.
I love that. That sounds like a good idea for me and you as well. Can't wait to do that soon. There's so many great spots. And for those listening, if you want to dig into the world of Travis Nicholson, there's lots of places to go beyond that. He was a producer on a short film called The Arm, with Brie Larson was involved. Did a feature film called Super Zeros that won the Audience Award at the Nashville Film Festival. Produced on a film called Listening. Obviously, the show Still the King. His video that he co-directed for Dierks Bentley, Gone, has been nominated for Video of the Year. And the aforementioned documentary, Soul of the Samurai, you can go find and watch as well on the internet, on streaming services. And so we'll end on this, Travis, as someone who has met Fidel Castro and has lived through the world the last 2 years. It seems like you've posted more politically than you ever have.
Yeah.
If you could get any political message, any personal message, any inspirational message out to the entire world, what would that message be?
Oh man, I think there is a worse than any pandemic we have is a empathy deficit in this country. And I got it. We all have it. And I think that is the greatest value asset as human beings we can offer to each other in a society. And I'm guilty of it. I've certainly gotten fired up at people that I didn't agree with politically, and sure have embarrassed myself by trying to convince somebody of something. And I think just reminding yourself that that's a person who believes in what they're saying, whether it's completely sideways and obtuse in your mind and wrong, they have heart and feelings and family and hurts and tragedies and challenges just like you do. And the more we can extend empathy to each other and remind ourselves that we're all people just trying to figure it out and nobody's great at it, that will benefit all of us. And I hopefully will help us start to heal as a country and remind yourself that we're all just human beings trying to live on this planet together until we populate Mars. It's kind of the only game in town. So let's try to get along better.
Trav, well said. Well said. Thank you, brother, for the time. And I wish you the best of luck with everything you have going on. I can't wait to see the output of all this great work and energy and creativity you're putting into the world and into your own life and into others' lives. And like I said before, let's get that coffee in Inglewood.
Sounds great, brother. Thanks for having me.
Anytime, man. Take care.
Later.
Bye.
You've been listening to the Make It podcast. To find out more information about this week's topics, including links to relevant blog posts, projects, and indie creatives, please visit our website at www.bonsai.film. If you haven't already, you can join our podcast community on Apple Podcasts or the podcast app of your choice by searching for Make It Bonsai Creative, and the show will pop right up. You now have the opportunity to support the production of this podcast. If you love Make It and are a true fan of what we're trying to accomplish in the indie film community, please visit www.bonsai.film and click Contribute. Contributions start at only $5 monthly. You can follow us on Instagram and Twitter at _Bonsai Creative and on Facebook by searching for Bonsai Creative. You can provide feedback to us via email at contact@bonsai.film. And you can follow me, Chris, on Twitter at FlamingYourHeart. That's FlamingYurHeart. And of course, if you're looking to take a big step towards your filmmaking success, go to www.bonsai.film and click on Services to explore a variety of offerings from keynotes and panels to pitch readiness assessments and so much more. You have everything to gain. Until next time, be better, be creative, be engaged, and thank you for listening.